Chris Hardwick, you've had another busy year, continuing to host At Midnight and Talking Dead this season, and now you're also hosting Talking with Chris Hardwick in between
Yes.
Walking Dead seasons and The Wall on NBC. First off, is it challenging to kind of rebalance your schedule when another new opportunity comes around?
I mean, it's always a challenge when you have a limited amount of time, but I feel like I try to be a problem solver about everything. So the first thing I ask myself is, is this a project that I'm excited about? Is it something I think I could do a good job with? Am I passionate about it? And if the answer is yes, then I just figure it out. I mean, I think everything is solvable as long as everyone's a little flexible. So there are some days where, maybe I'm late. I'm a little late at midnight, but not in a way that affects the taping of the show. But maybe there are other days where I have to move a podcast around, or I don't take a day off for a while. I think I just realized I haven't had any time off since Christmas because our At Midnight hiatuses were the first one a couple months ago. As we shot 20 episodes of The Wall in like 9 days, and then the other hiatus was Red Nose Day, and so that was really important for me to do. So it's also finding slots of time, when, okay, we can't do this now, but I know I'm going to have a break at this point, so I'll slot it in there. But everything is really just it's really just this weird sort of scheduling math equation. And I have a great manager and an excellent assistant, and I'm also actually a pretty decent time manager myself.
In the worst case scenario, you could just make like Superman and just reverse the rotation of the Earth.
I would reverse, yes, which of course would naturally reverse time. That's how that works. And then everything would just go back. But then I would have to do a lot of that stuff over again. So I don't know if I would want to have to. There are some things where I'm like, oh, I'm glad I got through that, but I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could do it again. So I think it just. I tend to just focus on whatever I can. Like the schedule is planned out, but I live in these kind of like compartmentalized units of time known as the day, and I just get through whatever I can get through in that day. And if there are problems that I can't solve today, then I just go, okay, I'll put those off until tomorrow, and then I'll deal with those tomorrow, when I'm better equipped. So that's kind of the way that I try to do that as well.
With everything, every project that you're a part of, do you find yourself in positions where, something just doesn't work out that you would love to take on, but maybe there's just not time for it, or you can't accommodate it the way you'd like to?
Sure. I mean, there are things that, like, for instance, when the X-Files came back on, I begged to do something. I'd be like, anything, I don't care, just anything. And so they said, okay, sure, you can audition for this role. And then I found out when it worked, and it was impossible. Like it overlapped At Midnight, and I can't miss At Midnight. And so that was one of I think it's opportunities like that where, I would love to be able to just do like a couple of days on an Avengers movie or like X-Files or something. And I can't even, it's not even worth asking because they know my schedule sucks and I know my schedule sucks for those types of things. And so I just don't do it. So it's a lot of those other kind of ancillary things that I would love to be able to branch out and do that, a lot of people just don't even ask me for stuff anymore because they go, we know you're busy. And I go, I know, I'm sorry. And especially now that I'm married, I feel like any free time I have, I want to be able to spend with my wife. So, I've actually been getting a little bit better about not filling every minute of every hour of every day of every week of every year. So that's been really nice too.
One of your new shows, Talking, which is sort of an extension of Talking Dead in the off season. It blends some of the Talking Dead format with some of the kind of in-depth interview format of your Nerdist podcasts. How did you decide on the format for that one?
AMC came to me and said, what would a talking show look like without a show in front of it, without Walking Dead? And I was like, I don't know if anyone's going to watch that if I'm not talking about another show. And they go, well, don't worry about that. Just what would you do with the show? And I said, I've always wanted to, because I feel like so much of our entertainment culture is obsessed with viral clips and quick, short attention spans. And okay, we got this one guest, and now there's another guest, and now we got to play a game, and now we got to do this, and now we got to go do that. And I said, I would really love to see just a long conversation with one person, an in-depth conversation that feels very comfortable. And so the skin of it will sort of look like Talking Dead in the sense that there's a lot of fan involvement. You know, we're pulling a lot of stuff from the internet. We're pulling, you know, that fan base. The soul of it is really the Nerdist podcast, where we, you know, I've done almost 900 of them. And that's just a really like a comfortable, in-depth conversation. And then on top of that, having a live audience there makes it a little bit of a Comic-Con panel that I'm sort of moderating. So it's really kind of like, I think it would be like a moderated fan conversation, you know, from a certain sector of pop culture. And I'm not seeing that anywhere. And that's what I would like to see as a fan. So maybe let's try to do that. And AMC was really awesome about it. They said, sure, great, do it. And that's what we've been doing. And it's been incredible. It's been really, 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 really fun.
And between all of those things you do, Nerdist podcast, Talking Dead, talking convention panels, you know, you've had a lot of experience doing interviews of various lengths. Do you prepare extensively for them all? Do you just try to follow the flow of conversation, or maybe is it a combination of both?
I probably shouldn't say this. I don't prepare at all. And some of that is just a function of the amount of time in my life. But some of that is also, I mean, I don't view them as interviews. So if people criticize me from the point of view of being a journalist, I go, well, I'm not a journalist. I'm just a guy. And these aren't interviews. And that's hard for some people to understand. And I understand why that is. But in my head, what they are like conversation. It's like if you met someone for coffee that you were aware of, but you didn't really know them and you just wanted to get to know them. What would that be like? Because I don't ever want to, all of those conversations I feel like sort of follow, if I'm too rigid going in, then I don't want it to feel too controlled. I want to make sure I'm aware of where the guest is at. A lot of them sort of take the form of whatever energy they're bringing in. So if they're more somber, the conversation will be more somber. If they're more upbeat, you know, we'll riff and it'll be funnier. There's serious ones, there are funny ones. And I feel like I couldn't really accomplish that if I was like, and then in 1998, you know, I want it to be very in the moment and very authentic to what is happening then. And so that's why I don't really plan them. And things that I don't know, I would rather discover through them rather than feel like I have an agenda. I really don't ever have any agenda. I want to get to know people. I want it to be a fun conversation, and I want them to feel happy when they leave. And that's literally what I feel like I do. And so that's why the conversation is two-way, and it's not just me most people don't want to be interrogated for an hour. And when you do, they get you can interrogate someone for like 7 or 10 minutes. But if it's an hour, they start to feel like you're taking more from them. But if you're conversing with them, and a lot of them don't really get the experience of being spoken to like a human. They are shuttled around junkets and kind of treated like a prop, like a piece of property, where people are just trying to get viral. Oh, I just need a headline, or I need something clippable, or I'm going to ask you the same questions. And I think a lot of them really crave human connection. And so I feel like that's what all the shows that I work on, I think, really try to do is I think that's their common thread, is that I'm always trying to find like what makes this thing human. Like what's human about a game show? So that's The Wall. What's human about, you know, comedy and the internet? And I think that's At Midnight. What's human about famous people? And I feel like that's the Nerdist podcast. What's human about Walking Dead or Breaking Bad or Saul or Preacher or whatever it is? And I feel like that's where I come from when I'm doing whatever the job is.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me in a way of when Craig Ferguson was doing the Late Late Show, which you appeared on a few times, and my favorite part of every segment was when he would rip up those blue cards and just start talking.
Well, that was a very honest thing for him to do, and he was incredible with it, because when he took the job, he would tell you the same thing. When he took the job, he didn't really internalize the idea that it was like, oh, this is like every day you're going to do this. And Craig, when he was young, was in punk bands. So his sort of soul is to punk and break the structure. And for him, it was just, I just need to have real authentic moments on my show, and I think that's what really defined who he was and what he brought to late night. And it was really special. And I think it kind of made a lot of other people go, oh yeah, we could just talk to people like people instead of doing and then you say this and the host will say this and then respond with this. And then because then that's more theater rather than something that's a real conversation. And yeah, there's a handful. I mean, obviously Howard Stern is probably a very notable example of, he's really sort of I think the godfather of podcasting, even though, he came from terrestrial radio. Larry King to an extent, although Larry is a very good interrogator. Like, he's a really good interrogator. Charlie Rose is also is really great at it inside the actor studio. So there are some examples of it, the old Tom Snyder show. But in general, it's very, companies are so obsessed with, like, we need viral clips. Oh my God, we need viral clips. This is where the kids are. We need to get the kids, And I said to AMC right away for talking, like, I'm not going to try to make you viral clips. I'm sorry, it's not really what the show's about. And to their credit, they said okay, and they've been really cool about it.
One of the differences between Talking and Talking Dead, another difference is that Talking is pre-recorded while Talking Dead is live. How does that change the dynamic and the feeling on set? Is there more tension during the live during kind of a live broadcast?
Well, it's not that but it's a great question, but there's not that there's tension. It's just that I feel like not everything needs to be live. Some things are more event-based. Walking Dead is a weekly event. It's an event. People, friends, families come together. They watch the show. They need to process it after we're Talking Dead. And so the live quality of that feels very in the moment, and it's really important for engaging people so that we are dealing with our feelings in real time as they've happened. The talking show itself, I think it's just it creates a little more comfort to the people who are on, and it's pretty live to tape. Like, there's an extended version that they let me put out as a Nerdist podcast that's longer. Obviously, we have to cut it to time, but I like my guests to feel safe. I want them to feel like, hey, I'm not here. There aren't any gotcha moments. I'm not trying to embarrass you or try to exploit you for attention or any clickbaity reasons. And so in that case, I feel like it's better because, when you're talking about Walking Dead, that's obviously people aren't opening up about their lives. But on the podcast or with the talking show, I'm asking them to open up, to talk about who they are. And so I just want to make sure that they feel as comfortable as possible. And so I think that's why that's important for that environment.
Your at Midnight show is usually pre-recorded, and you actually did some live shows this year.
So much fun.
Such a different kind of fast-paced show, multiple comics, tossing out jokes left and right. On a tape show, of course, you can edit for time, but not when you're live. So what was that like? For that particular show?
Well, when we were developing At Midnight, there were like 2 weeks where we were like, let's just do this show live. We can do this, because we've been. My company Nerdist has a theater space at Meltdown Comics where we do 7 nights a week of live comedy shows. And so in the spring, when Comedy Central said, okay, we're going to let you do a month-long pilot on air, you can do 16 shows, 4 shows a week for a month of At Midnight, and let's see how it goes. So I said, hey guys, I have this theater space. Let's develop the show. Like, let's do it live every week until it airs at the theater, to just see how it feels to get the beats down. And we were getting confident. We were like, well, hell, let's just do it as a live show. Like, think about how amazing that would be. It's live every night, stuff that happened that day. It's in the moment, it's real. And then at the last minute, because of budget reasons, we didn't do it. And I'm so glad we didn't, because it took us a couple of years to really understand how to do the live show. And our first live show was an election special this past year, and it was an incredible show to be a part of. And so when we did a week of live shows, we understood so well the mechanics of how At Midnight works that we didn't have to, when you do too many things at once, there's a lot of hurdles with the show. There's always a learning curve when you start. And then adding live on top of that, like, that's another hurdle to have to learn. So by the time we did live shows, we know the show so well we could do it with our eyes closed. And so that was very helpful. But I loved doing live shows because it is a tightrope act, like, is a joke not going to land, or is someone going to say something that's going to piss people off, or what's going to happen? And that was really fun. But in the end, we went back to doing the show tape. But I would love to do more live shows.
And speaking of the election, it feels like this has had reverberations around pop culture, in every corner, in every aspect. What has it been like in this age of Donald Trump to have this comedy show? Has it been the best, worst thing, or maybe the worst, best thing for comedians and artists this year?
Well, I mean, I think, when it all started happening, because at Midnight didn't really cover that much politics before, but our rule on the show was always, anything that's being talked about on social media is fodder for the show. That's the lens. So when that all started happening and it seemed like, oh, this is becoming a thing, then we started talking about it because that's what people on social media were talking about. But lately, I'm starting to feel some fatigue from it, because everyone's talking about it and it's so much and it's so, and I feel like we've actually had talks on At Midnight before, like maybe we pull back a little bit and give people a little bit of a break from it, and so that's because The Daily Show does that so well, and Jordan Klepper's show's coming on in the fall, and that'll be political, and Colbert has risen up in late night on the CBS show by doing politics, and so other shows are starting to do more politics, and I just feel like our show we want At Midnight to be fun, and we want it to be a release, and what we are finding is in the last couple of months, At Midnight is like a 35-minute show that we cut down to 21 minutes. So there are questions on the show that don't make air just for whatever reason. There were better answers in another question, or there was, it flowed better. And as we started getting a little more political, we would find the audience in studio would just get tight at some of the political stuff. And we started to realize, like, yeah, it's because you're hearing about it all day long and it's in your face, and people are fighting all day and they're shouting at each other and both sides are always angry and aggressive. And we want At Midnight to be fun and, sort of like a nice breather at the end of the day. So we've actually, if something crazy happens, we'll talk about it, but we've actually just taken it we've taken it back a bit so that it's not the default setting, because it just, like as a culture, I think we're just getting a bit of fatigue from all of it.
It's kind of an ironic catch-22 where the show is based on what's happening on social media, and then you have an audience that comes and just like, I've been talking about Donald Trump
all day. I've been fighting with people on Facebook and Twitter all day. Can I just not hear about this for 20 minutes, please?
Now, this completely different show now that you're doing The Wall. It's a game show where the points actually do matter.
They do matter. They're dollars, yeah.
And it's this combination of luck and trivia with these game balls falling down this giant 4-story pegboard. How did you come to be a part of that particular show?
I'd been friends with the NBC folks for a while, and there was always this kind of air of like, hey, if we ever find the right thing, let's do something together. And I said, great. And at the end of 2015, they came to us and said, okay, we have this game show. It's called The Wall. And I loved game shows as a kid. I watched every game show. I was obsessed with comedy. I was obsessed with video games and sci-fi, and for some reason, game shows. I don't know why. I just love in the era of game shows that I grew up in, there was like Match Game and $25,000 Pyramid and just all these kind of fun, loose game shows. And I always wanted to do a big, flashy game show. But the right one never came along, and some game shows feel too rigid. And earlier in my career, I was not at a point where I would have been allowed to be myself. Now, if someone hires me, they know what they're getting, and I go, well, I do things a certain way, and if you don't want that, totally cool, but you can't paint me into whatever it is that you want. You should hire someone else. If you want what I do, great. And so they said, do you want to do this show called The Wall? Do you want to hear about it? And I go, oh, my schedule's so crazy, I don't know. And they said, come in, play the game in our office for like 20 minutes. If you don't like it, then no hard feelings. And I said, okay. And, I knew LeBron was involved, and the fact that his company was involved, and obviously, that was really interesting to me. I don't know anything about sports, but I know who LeBron is, and I know he's a very positive force in the community, and I know he is a master at what he does. And so I thought, okay, well, if he's involved, there's probably some substance to it. So I went in, and a lot of people, when they say, they compare the show to Plinko on Price is Right, but it's really pachinko, which is a 100-year-old Japanese vertical pinball game. There are still pachinko casinos in Japan. I bought one when I was on my honeymoon in Japan. I have a Star Wars pachinko machine downstairs. So I played the game for 20 minutes, and I was so sucked in, like screaming. And this was just a digital version. There was a computerized ball and a computerized pegboard. And I was like, go to the left, go to the right. Oh my God. Like I got so sucked into it. But as we were doing the show, the thing that really took me by surprise was how emotionally involved it would be. So I feel like the show accesses a lot of human emotions. Like Vegas style, you just get to watch a ball drop down a wall and see where it lands. And just as human animals, that's a fun thing to do. Oh, you know, we're just like a kitten, you know, swatting it at it on a screen. But the idea that, you know, these people, and this, I think this was really LeBron's influence and Andrew Glassman who created the show. Let's pull people who really deserve a shot at, you know, having their lives changed because they're really good, they're altruistic, they give to their own communities, they've sacrificed for other people. And so you really get sucked into their story and you really want them to win, and it really sucks when they don't. And that was the part I didn't expect to be so emotionally attached. And then I realized that my role on that show was really to serve the contestants, to just be an ambassador and a cheerleader for them and be connected to them. And that human element of a game show isn't quite something that I've seen before. And so it really resonated with me. So I was really excited to do it because I'm at a really fortunate point in my life where I don't have to do anything that I don't want to do work-wise. And I think that's the most you can ever ask for as a successful career. It doesn't matter how you quantify anything else, but if you can say, you know, do you love everything you're doing? Yes. Do you have to do anything you don't want to do to survive? No. Well, then that is as much success as you could ever ask for. And so, you know, so if I do something, it's because I really want to, and I love doing the wall. I adore it. It's so special to me. And, you know, I'm a comic, so obviously I like doing things that are more comedy based, but there's fun parts of the show, but it just activates something so on such a human level for me that and I feel like I'm, you know, therapy for these people. I'm a therapy doll. A lot of them pick me up and fling me around, and I'm fine to be that, to have that be my role. So I know that was a very long answer, and I'm sorry for being so chatty, but that's I hope I answered it adequately.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the interesting things about The Wall is that one of the big differences between that and, say, other shows you host is that, you know, this giant 4-story set you're working with. Like, what is it like just to be on set working with that giant kind of, you know, that looming, you know, contraption?
When I stand at the base of it, because, I mean, you get a sense that it's big when you see it on TV, but you really can't comprehend it until you see it in person, that it is an industrial marvel. I mean, when you stand, you're not even as tall as where the bins, the dollar bins are. So you stand at the base of it and look up. I get a little vertigo because I don't like being in high places, so I could never really even walk to the top of the wall, but you just feel it in your stomach. But it is a behemoth. That thing is it's so massive that it's like being on it sort of looks like Tron a little bit, you know, it looks like the Tron game grid a little bit. So I always say, you know, when we're shooting them, if anyone's a fan of the show, they should absolutely come see it in person, because you really can't wrap your mind around how big it is until you see it in person.
For The Wall, you know, you're potentially up for a couple of Emmys. Actually, most of the shows that you've done this season are up for Emmys. The ballots actually came out this past Monday, and so I looked at everything that your shows are up for. You know, At Midnight is up for Variety Talk Series, an interactive program. Talking is up for Variety Talk Series. Talking Dead is up for Informational program, an interactive program. And then The Wall is up for reality competition and reality host. And it's very possible I'm missing a couple.
I feel like that's good.
Yeah, is this a mission to get into every possible category at the Emmys, or are you going to kind of brush off your single camera picture editing skills next?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's possible I get nominated for 0 of them, but we've won 2 Emmys for At Midnight, and so I guess I kind of feel like, I mean, if it doesn't happen, I can't be like, oh, everything sucks. I mean, it's like I'm still getting to do these amazing shows that I love doing. They all activate different passions from things that I'm, you know, excited about. And I get to do these things as my job. And so, I mean, yes, it feels amazing to win an Emmy, and I'm not going to pretend like I don't want to win it. It's you know, because you're up against other people that you respect, and it's an incredible honor to, you know, and it's a cliche thing. People go, oh, it's an honor to be nominated, but it really is to even be recognized anyway. Because we don't, when you're a performer, it's very difficult to. I was just talking to someone about this on a podcast where to quantify how well you're doing, you don't know, because it's not like, you know, oh, I started manufacturing a thing, and then I manufactured more things, and then all of a sudden it became, you know, a product, and it's in every store, and every kid has one. Like, when you're sort of the product as a performer, and so it's very difficult to know, like, am I doing a good job? Do people give a crap about this? Am I going to get to do more of these? You know, performers were all very insecure, and so it just feels really nice. It's kind of a validation of like, hey, maybe what you're doing isn't so crappy after all. Maybe it's okay. And so that feels amazing. So I would be happy with any or all of those, and incredibly honored, because it's, you know, I mean, I was one of those weird kids that was really into entertainment when I was growing up in a pre-internet era, before everyone had it so easy and accessible. And I watch the Emmys every year, and I used to be like, what would it be like to be there, you know? And I presented a couple years ago, and it was one of the most nerve-wracking things I've ever done, because I was like, oh my God, this is the Emmys. So, yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know what's going to happen, but I would be over the moon with, you know, even to be nominated for stuff. So I don't know. I guess I hope it happens, but if it doesn't, you know, then I'll still watch the show, and I'll still root for people, and, you know, it's all good.
One of the interesting categories, I think, you know, is in reality host, where you're a potential contender for the Wall. That's actually the same category as Norman Reedus, who has his show Ride on AMC.
Oh yeah.
You know, as an avid Walking Dead fan and the host of Talking Dead, you know, what would it be like to be nominated alongside potentially Norman Reedus?
Well, we'll never get nominated against each other for an acting award, because you know, he would win. I wouldn't even get nominated for an acting award. I mean, I love Norman. I mean, you know, especially if I lost to Norman, you can't be upset about that. I mean, Norman, you know, because I've gotten to know the cast and I've gotten to be friends with them over the years, like, I'm sort of like the weird cousin Oliver of that family, but I still feel like I'm a part of it in some way. And I've watched them all evolve from these, like, you know, I don't want to say like babies, but they were kind of like babies when they started, because no one knew where The Walking Dead was going to go. I mean, I think we all kind of knew, like, oh, this show is really special, but to become the phenomenon it's become, and Norman in particular is such a sweetheart. And early on, he was really shy, and he was really nervous, and, you know, he'd come on Talking Dead, and he'd be fidgety, and he'd be nervous, and now he's just so comfortable with it, and he's so comfortable with himself, and they love the fans, and they play with the fans, and, you know, they understand what a special thing this is that they're involved in. So the fact that Norman would get an opportunity to make a show that's something that he was passionate about, yeah, you absolutely should get nominated or win something because of that. So I think the longer I do this, and the more faces I look around and I go, oh, that's my friend, and I know them, and we used to do stand-up together, and oh my God, you know, like, that's where you really feel like you're a part of a community, you know, because we all want to belong, but it's also really nice when you see your friends grow and evolve and become, you know, where people start becoming aware of the thing that you already knew, which is that they're cool and special, and now everyone's discovering that, and so that's really fun for me. I'm not like, you know, I think I'm competitive in a healthy way where I'm inspired by other people to do better, but not in a way where I think like, oh, this should be mine and no one else's. You know, I want to destroy everyone. Like, I don't think that way. I think there's room for everyone, and so I would be so honored to be nominated alongside him, and I'd be happy if he won.
You mentioned presenting at the Emmys and how nerve-wracking that was. You know, since you've hosted pretty much every other kind of format of thing, would you ever be interested in hosting a major award show like the Emmys, or perhaps an Emmys after show?
Talking Emmys? Yeah, I mean, I can't. I mean, that'd be one of the biggest honors to get asked to do the Emmys, but also nerve-wracking too, because there's so much, you know, I mean, the internet, you know, it's like everyone's just so critical of everything now. I mean, I would just want to make sure I did a good job with it, but it would be an incredible honor. I mean, if they asked me, of course I would do it. But, you know, if I never get asked, I don't think I would ever feel like, oh, man, how come I never got my shot? I mean, again, you know, my life is populated with things that are beyond what I ever dreamt I'd be able to do. But, I mean, yeah, you know, especially the 13-year-old kid that lives in here that is who I think I am all the time. You're like, oh, my God, the Emmys, what? So I would just do my best job to not break it.
Well, you might break the Emmys this year, potentially with 1,500 different nominations across various categories, but in a good way. So I want to wish you the best of luck there, and congratulations again on everything you've had going on this year, and 50 million other things potentially next season. So thank you so much for talking with me today.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate it. I always, you know, it's funny to do the Gold Derby thing. Each year I sort of feel like, oh yeah, it's that time again. You know, like this has become, doing this chat has become a real symbol for me of like, oh yeah, we're like another year has gone by. Like we're already, you know, we're in it. And so I enjoy doing them, and I will do these as long as you guys keep asking.
Oh, we'd be happy to have you, especially because you kind of pioneered, you know, we're doing this is sort of a talk show on the internet. And so, you know, you're kind of a pioneer in that as well.
Yeah, that's what's great about it, is that the internet has taken a lot of excuses away from people for not just doing what they, you know, like going after stuff that they're excited about. Because it used to be, oh, you got to wait for some big company to tell you whether you're cool enough or not to be on a thing. And now you can just make that thing yourself. You don't have to wait for someone else to do it. You just find a thing you like and you just make a thing about it. And it's a really incredible time. So good job.
Well, thank you. And you know, like you said, every one of us now has like a handheld movie studio, a TV studio right in our hands at all times. So
what's on your lock screen? What's your lock screen?
Oh, it's you might appreciate this. It is a TARDIS.
Oh, nice.
Let me try, and 50 million notifications.
Nice, very good. Mine's oh wait, damn it. I did the same thing. It's a fingerprint thing, really. R5D4. Mine's R5D4. Well done. Well, thanks, man. It was good to talk to you. And yeah, let's do it again.
Absolutely. And you know, just keep winning more Emmys, and we will absolutely every year.
Oh, because of course, in the stories, if I don't get nominated for anything or with anything, people are gonna be like, "Wow, he failed like 12 times." Nice try, Hardwick. Way to suck up the joint.
Well, you keep playing the odds, so like you know, the more you have, the more likely.
Yeah, that's right. All right, thanks, man.
All right, have a great day.
Take care.